People always want to know where it started. Was it the phone call? The pills behind the tampon box? The old woman rewriting her will in the middle of the night while cancer ate her from the inside? No. It started with a phone that should have been locked. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. My name is Oscar Whitfield. I teach AP Physics at a high school in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm the kind of guy who grades exams at 11 o'clock at night because the quiet helps me think. I drink my coffee black, I run when I'm angry, and I married a woman named Chloe 6 years ago in Sedona, under a sky so wide and orange it felt like a promise. Turns out the only person who meant any of it was me. My twin sister, Olivia. She married a man named Dominic about 5 years back. Real estate agent. Decent smile, decent handshake, the type of guy who always had a new watch. We were close, the four of us. Dinners on Fridays. Holidays at Grandma Elaine's place in Scottsdale. We thought we'd raise our kids together someday, side by side, the way our parents never got to do for us. That was the picture. Pretty one, right? Here's what was actually happening behind it. It was a Thursday night, 11:47. I remember because I'd just marked a kid's answer wrong on a free body diagram and felt guilty about it. The kid was close, just forgot to account for friction. I was sitting there debating whether to give half credit when my phone lit up. Olivia. Now, my sister doesn't call. She texts. She'll text you a paragraph before she'll pick up the phone. So when her name popped up with an actual ringtone, I felt it in my stomach before I even answered. Oscar. Her voice was flat, controlled. But underneath it, something was shaking. I need to show you something. Come over. Don't bring Chloe. 3 sentences, no explanation. That's Olivia. She doesn't waste words when it matters. I looked at the bedroom door. Chloe was in there, asleep. Or pretending. I didn't know the difference yet. I grabbed my keys off the counter and left. The drive to Olivia's is 14 minutes at that hour. I made it in 11. Every red light felt personal. I didn't know what I was driving toward. I just knew that whatever Olivia had to show me was the kind of thing you don't say out loud until you're face to face. She was waiting at the kitchen table. The lights were low. Dominic was upstairs. I could hear him snoring through the ceiling. That thick, wet rumble he always did after he'd been drinking. Olivia didn't look at me when I came in. She just slid a stack of printed pages across the table. Screenshots, text messages, dozens of them, between Chloe and Dominic. I sat down and I read. Every single one. My sister watched me do it, and she didn't say a word. She just let me have it. The messages went back months. Maybe longer. There were pet names I'd never heard Chloe use, not with me anyway. There were plans to meet, hotels in Tempe, a weekend in Flagstaff she'd told me was a dental conference. Inside jokes, and some of them were about us, about me and Olivia. Little digs, little cruelties they traded back and forth like candy. And then there was one line that stopped me cold. Chloe to Dominic. Our boy is getting so big. Natalie sent pictures. Our boy. I read that line 3 times. Then I set the pages down and pressed my palms flat on the table because I didn't trust my hands. How long? I said. The messages go back at least 1.5 years, Olivia said. But some of the references, the way they talk, it's longer than that. Maybe 3 years. 3 years. Half our marriage. Olivia's eyes were dry. Not because she wasn't hurting, but because she'd already done her crying before I got there. I know my sister. She would have sat at this table, read every word, let it gutter in private, and then put herself back together before she picked up the phone. That's who she is. We sat in silence for a long time. The refrigerator hummed. Dominic snored. Then I said, "We don't react. Not yet." She nodded. "Not yet. We need to understand the full scope before we do anything. We act normal. We smile. We dig. Okay? And live. Nobody knows. Not a friend, not a cousin, not a bartender. Just us. Just us." I drove home at 1 in the morning. Chloe was still in bed. I stood in the doorway and watched her sleep, and I want to tell you I felt rage. That's what you'd expect, right? But it wasn't rage. It was something colder. Like the moment in a physics problem when you see the system clearly for the first time. All the forces, all the vectors, all the hidden variables that were there all along. You don't get angry at gravity. You just finally understand the equation. I went to the couch and stared at the ceiling until sunrise. Friday morning, I made breakfast. Eggs, toast, the little cup of yogurt she liked with the granola on the side. Chloe came out in her robe, kissed my cheek, and told me she had a dental conference in Tucson that weekend. She'd be back Sunday. I knew from the messages it was a hotel in Tempe with Dominic. "Have a good trip, babe," I said. She smiled. "You're sweet. I'll text you when I get there." The door closed and I exhaled for the first time in 12 hours. It came out ragged, like my lungs had forgotten how. I called Olivia. We met at a coffee shop, not our usual one, a place across town where nobody knew us. We picked a table in the back corner and we divided the work. Systematic. No drama. Just tasks. I would go through financial records, credit card statements, insurance documents, anything with a paper trail. Olivia would get back into Dominic's phone and email. She'd memorized his passcode from the screenshots and knew his patterns. We created an encrypted shared folder on a cloud drive and agreed on a naming convention for files. "We treat this like a lab experiment," I told her. "Evidence first. Emotion later." She stirred her coffee. "You really believe that? Evidence first, emotion later?" "No, but I believe in pretending I do until this is over." She almost smiled. Almost. That night, with Chloe gone, I went through the bathroom. Not ransacking it. Careful, methodical, the way you check a student's lab work line by line. Behind a box of tampons, stuffed inside a makeup bag I'd never had any reason to open, I found a blister pack of birth control pills. Ortho Tricycline Low. I checked the prescription label. Refilled continuously. 5 years. Our entire marriage. 5 years. I want you to understand what that means. We'd been trying for a baby since year 1. We'd gone to fertility specialists. I'd given samples. I'd sat in waiting rooms reading pamphlets about sperm motility while she squeezed my hand and said, "We'll figure it out, babe. It'll happen." I'd held her when she cried after negative tests. I'd blamed myself. Quietly, privately, I'd wondered what was wrong with me. There was nothing wrong with me. Every tearful conversation, every doctor's visit, every time she held my hand and said, "Maybe next month." Performance. All of it. 5 years of theater, and I was the only one in the audience. I sat on the bathroom floor. The tile was cold. I held that blister pack and I thought about the nursery I'd sketched out on graph paper one night. Just rough dimensions where the crib would go, whether we'd need to move the desk. I'd never shown it to Chloe. I was saving it for when we got the good news. That was the closest I came to breaking. Right there, on the bathroom floor at 10 o'clock at night, holding a little foil sheet of pills that had stolen something from me I couldn't name. But I didn't break. I took a photo of the pills. I photographed the prescription label. I put everything back exactly where I found it, down to the angle of the makeup bag. Then I stood up, washed my face, and went for a run. I ran 5 miles. It was dark, and the pavement was still warm from the day. I didn't think about anything except the next step. The second week was worse. Not because of what I felt, I'd put a lid on that, but because of what we found. Olivia called me Monday night. She'd been pulling mortgage records. Routine, she thought. Just making sure Dominic hadn't done anything stupid with their finances. He had. 2 years ago, Dominic had taken a second mortgage on their house. $185,000. And Olivia's signature was on the loan documents, except it wasn't her signature. He'd forged it. She was listed as co-borrower on a loan she never agreed to, never saw, never knew existed. They were 3 months behind on payments. Foreclosure notices had been going to a P.O. box she didn't know he had. "He's destroying me financially," she said. Her voice was steady, but I could hear the edge. "We're almost underwater, Oscar. Another 2 months and we lose the house." I closed my eyes. How much of that money went to them? I'm still tracing it, but there are regular transfers. $1,500 a month to an account I can't identify. Started right around the time the baby was born. The baby. Right. Let me tell you about the baby. I'd gone deeper into the messages that same week. Deeper than the flirting, deeper than the hotel plans. I found an old thread, almost 2 years back, where Chloe told Dominic, "The baby is healthy. Your sister picked him up from the clinic yesterday." I told Oscar I lost it. He cried for a week. "Read that again if you need to." I did. My wife had been pregnant, with another man's child. She'd told me she miscarried. I remember that day. She came home from what she said was a routine appointment and her face was gray. She sat on the edge of the bed and said, "It's gone." I held her. I cried. I ordered takeout because she couldn't eat, and I sat next to her on the couch and didn't say anything because I thought silence was what she needed. She went to her mother's cabin in Flagstaff that weekend. To grieve. I let her go because I thought she needed space. What she actually needed was to be somewhere no one could see that she wasn't grieving at all. The child was a boy. His name was Luca. He was being raised by Dominic's younger sister, Natalie Pratt, in Albuquerque. We found Natalie's social media. Her profile was private, but the profile picture showed a toddler with Dominic's jaw and Chloe's eyes, staring right at the camera like he already knew something was off about the whole arrangement. I didn't sit on the floor this time. I put my shoes on and I ran. 5 miles at midnight, same as before. The difference was that this time I wasn't running away from anything. I was running it through my system like a fever, burning it out so I could think straight. By the end of that second week, Olivia and I had the full picture. An affair spanning at least 3 years. A secret child hidden with a complicit relative. A forged mortgage and near bankruptcy. A fake miscarriage staged for my benefit. And all of it, every piece, circling around one thing we hadn't even gotten to yet. Our grandmother's money. Grandma Elaine was dying. Pancreatic cancer? She'd been diagnosed a 1.5 years back, and the treatments had slowed it down but not stopped it. She was 78 years old, sharp as a tack, and worth a good deal of money. Property in Scottsdale, a cabin in Sedona, savings my grandfather had built up over 40 years in construction. The kind of inheritance that changes lives. And Chloe knew exactly how much it was worth. She'd been asking questions, subtle ones, at family dinners, during visits. "How's Grandma feeling? Has she talked about the house? Do you think she has a plan for everything? I'd thought she was being considerate. She was casing the estate. This wasn't just cheating. This was a heist. And my wife and my sister's husband were running it together. I called a lawyer. Ray Caldwell. Family law, recommended by a colleague at school who'd been through a bad divorce. I sat in Ray's office on a Wednesday afternoon and laid it all out. The affair, the child, the birth control, the forged mortgage, the inheritance angle. All of it. Ray was maybe 60, gray hair, reading glasses on a chain. The kind of man who's heard everything twice. But even he paused a couple of times. When I finished, he leaned back and said, "You've got enough for fault-based divorce. Potential criminal fraud charges for the forgery. Possibly civil claims. But here's my advice. If you want to maximize your position, keep collecting and stay silent. Don't tip them off. The longer they think they're safe, the worse their situation gets." How long? A few more weeks. Let the evidence pile up. And when you move all at once. Don't give them time to adjust. I told Olivia. She agreed. We kept smiling. We kept cooking dinner and kissing cheeks and asking about each other's days. And every night, after the lights went out, we added another file to the encrypted folder. Every Saturday, Olivia and I visited Grandma Elaine. It's what we did. Had been doing it since we were kids, and our parents would drop us off for the weekend. Elaine's house in Scottsdale was the only place that ever really felt like home. Big backyard, a chess set on the porch table, lemonade in the fridge. She'd taught us both to play chess before we could ride bikes. The board is small, she used to say, but the mistakes are enormous. Think 3 moves ahead or don't bother sitting down. She was on hospice now, thinner every week. But her eyes were exactly the same. Brown, bright, missing nothing. This particular Saturday, week 3, we arrived and made small talk. How she was feeling. What the nurse had brought her for lunch. The usual. Then Elaine dismissed the nurse, waited until the front door clicked shut, and turned to us with an expression I hadn't seen since I was 12, and she caught me lying about breaking her kitchen window. "Sit down, both of you. I know about Chloe and Dominic." Olivia grabbed my arm. I didn't move. "6 weeks ago," Elaine said, "your wife," she pointed at me, "sat at my dinner table and asked me very sweetly whether I'd considered putting the Sedona cabin in both your names. Joint ownership. For tax purposes," she said. Elaine's lip curled. Tax purposes. That girl couldn't tell a W-2 from a grocery list, so I called a man I know, an investigator, and he told me things I wish I didn't have to hear. She reached under the Afghan on her lap and pulled out a manila folder. Thick, tabbed. The affair. The boy in Albuquerque. The money Dominic stole from Olivia. The mother pulling strings. It's all in here. Olivia took the folder. Her hands were steady, but her jaw was tight. "I rewrote my will," Elaine said. "Everything goes into an irrevocable trust. You two are the beneficiaries. Your spouses, or soon-to-be ex-spouses, get nothing. And here's the part that matters. The trust has a clause. If either of you is divorced at the time I go, your share is protected from any settlement, completely shielded. My attorney spent 2 weeks making sure it's airtight." She folded her hands. Her knuckles were swollen, her skin papery, but her grip was still firm. "I didn't survive 78 years to let 2 grifters steal what your grandfather built with his hands." The room was quiet. The oxygen concentrator hummed softly by the window. Outside, a bird was going at it. Some kind of desert wren, completely indifferent to what was happening inside this house. "Grandma," I said, "how long have you known?" "Long enough to be angry, and then long enough to be useful." She looked at me hard. "I don't have much time left, Oscar. You know that. Promise me you'll finish this properly. No rage, no shortcuts. Do it right." "I promise." She reached over and squeezed my hand. Her fingers were cold, but her grip was iron. That's who Elaine was. Even at the end, even with the cancer hollowing her out from the inside, she was still 3 moves ahead of everyone in the room. We drove home in Olivia's car. Neither of us spoke for 10 minutes. Then Olivia said, "She hired a PI. Our 78-year-old grandmother, dying of cancer, hired a private investigator." "Yeah. She's tougher than both of us." She always was. Week 4. The cracks were showing. Not on our side, on theirs. Here's what was happening. Natalie Pratt, Dominic's sister, the woman raising Luca in Albuquerque, was getting greedy. Or desperate. Maybe both. The line between those two gets thin when you're sitting on someone else's secret. She'd originally agreed to raise the boy for $1,500 a month. Now she wanted $4,000 and a lump sum of $25,000. And if she didn't get it, she was going to call Olivia and tell her everything. Olivia and I intercepted this through Dominic's messages. We could see the panic in real time. Chloe texting at 2 in the morning, Dominic calling back and forth between his sister and my wife like a man trying to plug holes in a dam with his fingers. After talking it over with Ray, I made a move. Calculated. Precise. I set up a burner email, took me 20 minutes and a library computer, and sent Natalie one message. "Natalie, the people paying you are about to lose everything. If you want to protect yourself and that child, you should talk to a lawyer in Albuquerque. Things are going to move fast." That's it. No signature, no explanation, just enough to put the fear of God in her without showing my hand. It worked better than I expected. Natalie called Dominic in a fury that same night. We could see his phone blowing up through the message logs. "Someone knows. Someone sent me a message. What did you do?" Dominic and Chloe had a whispered argument. I could hear the muffled tension through the bedroom wall when Chloe took a call in the bathroom at 11 at night. They thought Natalie was bluffing, trying to manufacture urgency to squeeze out more money. They were wrong. But they couldn't afford to find out. And now they were spending energy managing a fire they didn't start, which meant less energy watching the one that was actually about to burn their house down. In physics, we call this perturbation theory. You introduce a small disturbance into a stable system, and then you sit back and watch what happens to the equilibrium. The system tells you everything you need to know about its weaknesses. Their system was full of weaknesses. Week 5, Janet showed up. Janet Holloway is Chloe's mother. I should have told you about her earlier, but the truth is I didn't understand what she was until later. I thought she was just an overbearing mother-in-law, a little too polished, a little too sweet, the kind of woman who always touched your arm when she talked to you and held eye contact a beat too long, like she was running calculations behind those mascara-heavy lids. She flew in from Portland for a surprise visit. I cooked dinner. Chicken parmesan, garlic bread, a salad she didn't touch. I poured wine. I asked about her book club, her garden, her neighbor's new dog. I performed the role of good husband, good son-in-law, with the precision of a man who now understood that performance was the family business. After dinner, I went to the kitchen to clean up. From the hallway, I could hear Janet and Chloe in the living room, voices low. I stopped moving and listened. "The timeline moved up," Janet was saying. "The old woman looks worse. We might need to file sooner than—" They stopped. I'd made the mistake of letting a glass clink against the counter. I walked in with a dish towel over my shoulder and a smile on my face. "Anybody want coffee?" Janet beamed. "Oh, Oscar, you spoil us." Later that night, I sat in my car in the driveway and read the PI file Elaine had given us. The section on Janet Holloway was illuminating. 12 years ago, Janet had gone through her own divorce. She'd accused her husband of abuse. The claims were never substantiated. No police reports, no hospital visits, no witnesses. What there was a swift settlement, the house, significant alimony, and a clean exit. Janet had been living off that money ever since, supplemented by regular cash infusions from Chloe. She was the architect. Chloe was just the tool. The whole scheme, the affair as leverage, the baby as insurance, the inheritance as the payday, it had Janet's fingerprints all over it. This was a woman who'd done it before and was coaching her daughter to do it again. Janet hugged me goodnight. She put her hands on my shoulders and said, "You're such a good man. My daughter is so lucky." I smiled. "Thank you, Janet." I went to the car. I sat in the dark. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went bone white and the leather creaked. Then I picked up my phone and called Olivia. "I know who built this whole thing," I said. "Her mother. She's been running the playbook from the beginning. And I know how to take them all down." Weeks 6 and 7 were preparation. Pure engineering. Ray Caldwell laid out the strategy in his office with the blinds closed and a legal pad full of notes that looked like a battle plan. For me, fault-based divorce citing adultery, supported by documented evidence of the affair, the birth control deception, and dissipation of marital assets. Arizona's technically a no-fault state, but evidence of fraud and waste can shift how the judge divides property. With what we had, the screenshots, the prescription records, the PI report, Ray was confident we could push for an unequal split, heavily in my favor. For Olivia, divorce filing plus a criminal referral. The forged mortgage was a Class 4 felony in Arizona. Forgery of a spouse's signature on a financial document. Dominic was looking at 1 to nearly 4 years if convicted. Ray handed her the statute number like a receipt. We spent those 2 weeks getting our ducks in a row. Separate bank accounts, redirected direct deposits, frozen joint credit cards. I pulled my medical records. Every fertility consultation, every test, every specialist visit that proved I'd been led to believe something was medically wrong with me. Olivia compiled the mortgage documents, the forged signatures, the P.O. box records. We organized the screenshots, the PI report, Chloe's prescription history from our shared insurance portal. It was a lot of paper. That's the thing about liars. They always leave a trail. They just assume nobody's looking. During all of this, something small happened that I want to mention. At school, a colleague of mine, Dr. Angela Webb, she taught biology down the hall. She pulled me aside one afternoon by the vending machine. Didn't make a big deal of it. Just handed me a cup of coffee and said, "Whatever it is, you're handling it. I can tell because you're not handling it like most people would." I looked at her. She had this way of saying exactly one sentence too many. Just enough to let you know she'd been paying attention without making you feel watched. I almost told her everything. Right there, next to the Doritos and the humming fluorescent lights. But I didn't. I said, "Ask me again in a month." She nodded. "I'll hold you to that." She walked away, and I stood there holding a lukewarm coffee in a paper cup, and for about 5 seconds I remembered what it felt like to be seen by someone who didn't want anything from me. Week 8, the whole thing almost went sideways. Looking back, I should have expected it. Chloe and Dominic were rattled. Natalie's meltdown, the anonymous email, something in the air that they couldn't name but could feel. Cornered animals don't sit still. They bite. Their plan, which had Janet's polish all over it, was elegant in its dishonesty. Accuse the twins of cheating first. If they could make me and Olivia look like the villains, they could control the story when the divorce hit. Preemptive strike. It happened on a Thursday evening. Chloe sat me down at the kitchen table. She had tears in her eyes. Real-looking tears, too. And I want to give her credit for that. She was good at this. "Oscar," she said, voice wavering, "I need to talk to you about something. I've been hearing things. About you and a woman from work." I didn't want to believe it, but she slid her phone across the table. On it were text messages, fabricated, clean, convincing, suggesting I'd been having an affair with some woman whose name I'd never heard. At the same time, and I found this out later, Dominic was sitting Olivia down with the same script. Oscar's been cheating. Olivia's been covering for him. Coordinated. Identical timing. I listened to every word Chloe said. I didn't interrupt. I didn't shift in my chair. I didn't touch the phone. I let her run through the whole thing. The tears, the wounded voice, "I just want the truth, Oscar." All of it. When she finished, the kitchen was quiet. The ice maker dropped a load in the freezer. The clock on the wall ticked. I looked at her. Steady. No expression. "Are you done?" She blinked. "What?" I said, "Are you done? Because I want to make sure you finished." The temperature in the room changed. I could see it hit her. Not understanding, not yet, but the first crack. The first tiny fracture in the certainty she'd been carrying. Her lips parted and nothing came out. I stood up, pushed the chair in, picked up my keys from the counter. "I'm going to Olivia's. Don't wait up." I walked out. I didn't slam the door. People always think slamming the door is the power move. It's not. Walking out quietly, letting the silence fill the space where the explosion was supposed to be. That's what breaks them. Because they've rehearsed for the screaming. They haven't rehearsed for the nothing. At Olivia's, we compared notes. Same playbook, same timing, same fabricated evidence. They'd even used the same fake message format. Janet had probably drafted both scripts from her kitchen table in Portland. We called Ray Caldwell at 9:30 at night. He answered on the second ring. When you're paying a man $400 an hour, he picks up. "This is actually perfect," Ray said. "They've shown their hand. They're panicking, and panicking people make mistakes. They just added attempted defamation to the pile. Move the timeline up. We file Monday." Monday. I hung up and looked at Olivia. She was standing by the window with her arms crossed, watching the street. Dominic's car was gone. He'd stormed out after Olivia had said exactly 2 words to him. "Save it." 3 days, I said. 3 days, she said. Neither of us slept much that weekend. But it was a different kind of awake. Not the gutted, hollow insomnia of the first night. This was focused. This was the coiled stillness before the spring releases. Monday morning, 9 a.m. sharp. Ray Caldwell walked into the Maricopa County Superior Court and filed 2 divorce petitions simultaneously. Mine cited irreconcilable differences, but came attached to a detailed motion for unequal property distribution. Supporting evidence: documented adultery, reproductive fraud spanning 5 years, and dissipation of marital assets. Every screenshot, every prescription record, every page of the PI report, filed and indexed. Olivia's petition included the same adultery evidence plus a criminal referral packet for the forged mortgage. By 9:30, a separate report was sitting on a desk at the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office with Dominic's name on it. Then the process servers went out. Chloe was served at her dental office. Front desk, middle of the morning, colleagues within earshot. She'd been sterilizing instruments when the server walked in and asked for her by name. Ray's advice on this had been blunt. Don't let them control the narrative. Let reality hit them in public, where they can't immediately regroup and start spinning. Dominic was served at a property showing. In front of a client. In front of the client's wife. He tried to refuse the papers. The server set them on the hood of his car and walked away. You can't unserve someone by refusing to hold the envelope. Chloe called me 17 times that day. I didn't pick up once. I watched the screen light up and go dark. Light up and go dark. Like a heartbeat getting weaker. She called Janet. I know this because the phone record showed it. 3 minutes, 40 seconds. I can imagine the conversation. Janet telling her to stay calm, deny everything, stick to the script. But the script was written for a different play. The stage had changed, and Janet hadn't read the new reviews yet. Dominic called Olivia once. She picked up, said one sentence. You forged my name on a $185,000 loan, Dominic. Talk to your lawyer. And hung up. 15 seconds. That was all he got. Dominic called Natalie next. Natalie didn't answer. She'd already retained her own attorney in Albuquerque. That burner email I'd sent had landed exactly where it needed to. That evening, I drove to Grandma Elaine's. She was in her chair by the window, the one with the view of the backyard where the jacaranda tree was just starting to drop its purple blossoms. She was weaker. The oxygen was running. But when I walked in, she turned her head and her eyes found me like they always did. Sharp, certain, warm. You did it right, she said. I promised you I would. Your grandfather would have liked how you handled it. He was a patient man, too. People mistook it for softness. It wasn't. I know. She asked me to bring her tea. Chamomile, a little honey. I went to the kitchen and stood by the stove while the kettle heated, and I listened to the quiet of that house. The oxygen concentrator, the tick of the old clock in the hallway, the settling of walls that had been standing for 40 years. When I brought the tea back, she took a sip, set it on the side table, and closed her eyes. Stay a while, she said. I stayed until she fell asleep. The weeks after the filings were ugly, not dramatic ugly, procedural ugly. The kind of ugly that happens in courtrooms and conference calls and parking lots outside lawyers' offices. Chloe hired an attorney. She came out swinging, denied the affair, denied the birth control, called the PI report hearsay. Her lawyer took one look at the evidence and told her to negotiate. She refused. She showed up at my school, walked right into the front office and asked to see me. But I'd already spoken to the principal and had a temporary restraining order in hand. The school security guard walked her to the parking lot. I watched from my classroom window. She was crying. Real tears this time, I think. But I couldn't tell anymore, and that was the worst part. I'd lost the ability to know when she was genuine, if she'd ever been genuine, If there was a version of her underneath all the layers that had ever loved me or just loved what I could provide. Dominic's situation was worse. The forgery investigation moved fast. Handwriting analysis confirmed what we already knew. The signature on the mortgage documents wasn't Olivia's. It wasn't even close, honestly. Dominic had been sloppy, the way people are when they believe they'll never get caught. He was arrested on a felony charge. Bail was set at $20,000. He couldn't pay it because he was broke. He'd poured everything into Natalie, into Chloe, into the hotel rooms and burner phones and the whole rotten infrastructure of the affair. He sat in county jail for 3 days before his mother scraped together the bail money. 3 days. I've heard people say jail changes you. I don't think 3 days changed Dominic. I think it just showed him who he'd been all along. During discovery, Chloe's messages with Janet were subpoenaed. And this was the part that even Ray raised his eyebrows at. Because it wasn't just a mother offering bad advice. It was coaching. Detailed, specific, tactical coaching. Janet had walked Chloe through every step. The birth control, the staged miscarriage, the timing of inheritance questions, the fabricated cheating accusations against me. There were messages where Janet laid out timelines, where she calculated figures, where she wrote, and I'll never forget this line, "Stay married until the old woman dies, then take your share and disappear." The old woman. That was Elaine. The woman who'd made Chloe homemade pie every Thanksgiving, who'd given her a pearl necklace for her birthday 2 years in a row because she kept saying how much she loved the first one. The old woman. Ray filed a civil conspiracy claim against Janet. It wouldn't send her to prison, but it would drag her name through a courtroom and cost her money she couldn't afford to lose. And then Natalie turned. Natalie Pratt, facing the possibility of charges related to concealing the child in the financial arrangement, sat down with Olivia's legal team and told them everything. She gave a sworn statement. When the baby was born. Where? Who paid for what? The blackmail payments, amounts, dates, the dummy Venmo account. She laid it all out in exchange for Olivia agreeing not to pursue civil claims against her. But she did something else, too. Something I didn't expect. She expressed genuine concern for Luca. Not as a bargaining chip, not as a performance. She asked the court to establish formal guardianship. She wanted to keep raising him. She'd been doing it for nearly 2 years. Whatever her reasons for getting involved in the first place, she loved that boy. You could see it in the way she talked about him. And I believed her, which surprised me, because I'd spent the last 2 months learning not to believe anyone. Elaine died on a Tuesday morning. Olivia and I were there. We'd been taking shifts, one of us always at the house, sleeping on the couch in the next room, the way you do when you know the math is almost done and you don't want to be on the wrong side of the equation when the answer comes. She went quietly. Her breathing got shallow around dawn, and then it got quieter, and then it just stopped. No dramatic last words. She'd said what she needed to say weeks ago. The last thing she told me was the night before. There's leftover soup in the fridge. Make sure your sister eats. That was Elaine, practical to the end. We buried her on a Thursday. The service was small. The people who loved her were there, and the people who wanted something from her were there, and it wasn't hard to tell the difference. The will reading happened the following week. Chloe and Dominic both showed up. They had to. Their attorneys had advised them to attend, probably hoping for some scrap of leverage. Chloe wore black, which was appropriate for a funeral and also for the death of her plan. Dominic sat in the corner looking like a man who'd been holding his breath for 2 months and was starting to turn blue. Elaine's attorney, a woman with silver hair and no patience for theatrics, opened the document and read it in a flat, clinical voice. All assets: the Scottsdale home, appraised at $1.2 million, the Sedona cabin at $680, liquid assets of $340,000, placed in an irrevocable trust. Oscar and Olivia Whitfield, sole beneficiaries. Spouses explicitly excluded. Then the attorney read the letter. Elaine had written it by hand. I recognized the handwriting, the same slightly shaky script she'd used to write our birthday cards since we were old enough to read. To those who sought to profit from my family's love, you will leave this room with nothing. Not because I am cruel, but because my grandchildren deserve to be protected from people like you. Chloe went white. Not red. White. The blood left her face like someone had pulled a drain plug. Dominic started to stand up, started to say something, but Elaine's attorney cut him off with a single raised hand and a voice like granite. The trust is irrevocable. It was executed well before the divorce filings. It is legally unassailable. If your counsel has questions, they may contact my office. I looked at Chloe. She was staring at the table. Her hands were in her lap. She didn't look at me. I found out later that Janet had been watching the whole thing over FaceTime on Chloe's phone. When the letter was read, she disconnected. Didn't say a word, just ended the call. That was the last time Chloe heard from her mother for a long time. My divorce was finalized 4 months after filing. The evidence was overwhelming, and Chloe's attorney eventually stopped fighting and started negotiating for scraps. I got the house, the majority of marital assets. Chloe was ordered to pay a portion of my legal fees due to, and Ray loved this phrase, litigation misconduct. She left Phoenix. I heard she went to Flagstaff, then somewhere in New Mexico. I didn't follow it closely. I had what I needed, which was her gone. Olivia's case wrapped up about a month after mine. Dominic got nothing from the marital property. The foreclosure was halted after Olivia used trust funds to pay off the fraudulent mortgage, and she sued the lending institution for failing to verify signatures, which they settled quietly and quickly because no bank wants that particular headline. Dominic pled guilty to a reduced forgery charge. Class 6 felony. 18 months probation, community service, and a felony record that ended his real estate career. You can't hold a license in Arizona with a forgery conviction. He'd have to find a new line of work. I heard he moved back to his mother's place in Tucson. The courts established formal custody proceedings for Luca. Natalie was granted temporary guardianship. Chloe, broke and humiliated, didn't petition for custody. Dominic got supervised visitation. A felony conviction and a documented affair don't exactly scream Father of the Year to a family court judge. I told Olivia something around this time that seemed to surprise her. I said, "That boy didn't choose any of this. If Natalie ever needs help, money, legal stuff, anything, we help." She looked at me for a long moment. "You sure?" "He's a kid, Liv. He's just a kid who got born into a mess he had nothing to do with." "Okay, then we help. Here's a thing I'll tell you because you're sitting here and you asked. I don't hate Chloe. I did for a while. Somewhere around week 3, when the full scope of it was clear, there was a white-hot period where I could feel it in my chest like a physical weight. But that burned off. What replaced it was something more like clarity. She was what she was. Her mother made her, the same way pressure makes certain kinds of rock. Dense, hard, and with all the soft parts crushed out. The last scene of Chloe's story. And I know this because Natalie told Olivia, who told me. Chloe called Janet from a studio apartment somewhere, left a voicemail. Mom, please pick up. I don't have anyone else. Janet never called back. The architect abandoned the building when the foundation cracked. That's what Janet always was. Not a mother, not really. A contractor. And when the project failed, she walked off the job site. That was probably the cruelest thing in the entire story, and Chloe was on the receiving end of it. The master manipulator got manipulated by the one person she thought was on her side. I'd feel sorry for her if she hadn't spent 5 years lying to my face while I mourned a baby that was alive. Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I emerged from this a better man. That's what people want to hear. That suffering is a forge, and you come out the other side as polished steel. Maybe for some people. For me, I came out tired. Lighter, yeah, but tired. The kind of tired where you sleep 8 hours and wake up feeling like you ran a marathon in your dreams. But I'll tell you 2 things, and then I'll let this go. First, I went back to my classroom. Newton's third law was on the board. I'd been teaching it the week everything kicked off, and I never erased it. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. A student in the front row, a kid named Diego who was too smart for his own good, looked at me and said, "Mr. Whitfield, you good?" "Better than okay," I said. And I meant it. Not in a healed way, in an honest way. After school that day, Angela knocked on my classroom door. She was holding 2 coffees. She leaned against the frame and said, "It's been a month." I looked at her. "Yeah, it has." She sat down at the desk nearest mine. Didn't ask. Just sat. "So," she said, "tell me." I took a breath. And for the first time in 8 months, I talked to someone who actually wanted to hear me. Not because they were collecting information, not because they were building a case or rehearsing a performance. She just wanted to hear me, and I let her. Second thing, about a month later, Olivia and I drove up to the Sedona cabin. Elaine had left it to us, and neither of us had been there since she died. The key was under the same rock where it had always been, a piece of red sandstone the size of a softball, third from the left along the garden border. Elaine had told us about it when we were 10, and we'd never told another soul. We sat on the porch. The sun was going down over the red rocks, and the sky was doing that thing it does in Sedona, where the colors don't seem real. Like someone turned the saturation up on the whole landscape. Olivia said, "Do you think she's watching?" I said, "I think she planned this view specifically for tonight." She laughed. I laughed. And it wasn't the kind of laugh you forced to prove you're fine. It was real. Messy, maybe. A little raw, but real.